I was 42 from Linton, Indiana. I'd been working odd jobs and moving around. That summer I ended up in Arizona passing through Sedona on my way to Flagstaff. I pulled off the road to get something cold to drink and landed in a bar just outside town. That's where I met him. He was sitting at the bar drinking club soda. We got to talking. I told him I was from Montana originally. I'd moved to Arizona after my divorce and losing a job that didn't work out. I didn't try to dress it up. It was what it was. I'd been doing trail work since, fixing fences, clearing brush, whatever came up. Then I said something I hadn't planned to. Mostly, I wait. He looked at me and asked, for what? For Gray. Didn't say anything else. He didn't push. We finished our drinks and went our separate ways. But the next morning he came back. Maybe he was curious. I would have been. He sat down next to me. Didn't think you'd be back, I said. Me neither, he said. We sat in silence for a bit, then I asked, you ever meet someone who changes the way you see everything? He shook his head. Not yet. I did, I said. His name was Gray. I met him doing trail work down near Saguaro National Park. Older guy. Didn't say much. Lost his son a long time ago. That loss, it changed him. And somehow it changed me. He didn't say anything, just nodded. It started out there, I said. In the desert. That's where everything shifted for me. I was working trail crew near Saguaro National Park. It was state work, clearing paths, fixing erosion, basic upkeep. There were 4 of us. After 2 weeks, they rotated partners. That's when I got paired with Gray. He was older. Didn't say much. Walked with a slight limp but kept pace. First day together, we worked side by side and said maybe 10 words. Second day, a little more, just practical stuff. At lunch on the third day, he asked where I was from. I told him Montana. I mentioned the divorce, the job I lost, how I ended up in Arizona. He said road brought you here. Same for me. That's all. Day after that he mentioned he used to do construction. Said he had a son, Adam. No follow-up. Next workday we sat down in the shade for a water break. He said Adam died at 17. Car accident. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. 2 days later he told me the rest. Adam had been in a truck with friends. Another vehicle ran a stop sign. Hit the passenger side. Adam didn't make it. Gray said they'd argued that morning. He'd told Adam to stop messing around with school, get serious. That was the last thing he ever said to him. He didn't cry. Didn't change his tone. Just said it while pulling weeds and tossing rocks off the trail. After the funeral, he said he couldn't go back to work. Everything reminded him of Adam. He quit, sold the house, packed up, and left. He didn't have a plan. He just needed to move. He found trail work by accident. Been doing it ever since. It's the only thing that clears my head, he said. I asked if it helped. Not always. But it helps more than doing nothing. For the next 2 weeks, we worked together. He told me more, not all at once, just little things. The guilt. The quiet. The way people drifted off. Friends stopped calling. Family meant well but didn't get it. So he stayed out here. Alone. Not angry. Just different. I asked, you ever think about going back? Back to what? He said. That life's gone. That man's gone too. That stuck with me. I couldn't shake it. At the time I was still mad about everything. The divorce, the lost job, where I'd ended up. Felt like life had cheated me. But standing next to Gray every day, hearing how he lived with that kind of loss without turning bitter, I started to feel something shift. I realized I hadn't lost anything like he had. And I was still acting like the world owed me something. When the job ended, we didn't have a big moment. Just a simple goodbye. Gray looked at me, gave a small nod, and said, take care of yourself, son. We shook hands. That was it. No contact info. No promises. He left. I stayed. But I stayed because something about Gray stayed with me. The way he carried it all, not with noise, not with anger. Just quiet, steady, like it was part of him now. That changed me. Still does. A few months later, I took a fire crew job near Payson. It was seasonal work, digging fire lines, clearing brush. I didn't know who'd be on the team. We just got names from the supervisor before new guys showed up. One morning, he said 2 were coming from New Mexico. One of them was named Gray. I didn't say anything. Waited to see. Later that day, a supply truck rolled in. 2 guys jumped off. One was young, looked fresh. The other one moved slower, wore the same kind of hat. I knew it was him right away. I walked up. He squinted and said, Montana, right? Didn't think I'd see you again, I said. Me neither. We shook hands and got assigned to the same part of the line. We didn't catch up. Just got to work. For the next few days, we dug and cleared brush. Hot days. Long shifts. Not much talking. Just like before. Third day out there, he asked, "You been all right?" "Getting there." "Good." That was the conversation. Later that night, back at camp, I asked him where he'd been working. "Texas for a bit. Then Utah. Ended up circling back here." "Why Arizona?" He shrugged. "Feels like the right place to keep moving." After that, I started watching more. Not just how he worked, but how he dealt with people. Gray never talked big. Never acted like he was in charge. But younger guys listened to him. One morning, a new guy on the crew dropped his tool and sat down on a log. Looked beat. Said he couldn't do it. Gray walked over, handed him some water, sat next to him. Didn't say much. Just sat there. 5 minutes later, the guy stood up and went back to work. I asked Gray later, "You always know what to say?" "Not always. Sometimes people just need a minute." That night, he told me something I hadn't heard before. "After Adam died, I stopped talking to people. Felt like anything I said came out wrong. I was mad at everyone. Took years to stop blaming myself. Then one day, I saw a guy crying on the trail. Couldn't walk past. I sat next to him. Didn't talk. Just sat. That helped him. And for some reason, it helped me too. I realized maybe I wasn't completely useless. I didn't answer. Just let him talk." A few days later, he got word that the New Mexico team needed him back. His job with us was temporary. He packed up early the next morning. I walked him to the truck. "You still waiting for something?" he asked. "Waiting to understand it all, I guess." "You won't," he said. "But you'll learn to live with the questions." We shook hands again. "Keep going," he said. "You've got good bones for it." Then he left. That was the last time I saw him. But not the last time I heard him in my head. After Gray left, I stayed on with the fire crew until the contract ended. I didn't talk much, didn't feel like it. Something in me had settled, but not in a peaceful way, more like I couldn't move on from what Gray had said. That you never understand it all, but you live with the questions. I carried that with me. When the job ended, I didn't take the next offer. I stayed around pacing. Picked up small work, trail cleanup, hauling tools, helping out with crews that needed an extra hand for a day or two. I didn't have a plan. Just felt like I was where I was supposed to be. One weekend, I was at a small hardware store picking up gloves when a guy from the old fire crew spotted me. His name was Rick. He asked if I was still around. I said yeah. He asked if I'd heard from Gray. No, I said. Last I saw him, he was heading back to New Mexico. Rick said, "That guy said one thing to me on our last day that stuck. He told me, 'You're not tired, you're scattered. Try one thing at a time.' And damn if it didn't help." I nodded. That sounded like him. That night I wrote it down. I didn't used to write anything. But I started writing down things Gray had said. Not all of them, just the ones that lingered. You've got good bones for it. You'll learn to live with the questions. Sometimes people just need a second. I didn't know why I was writing them. It just helped. Over the next year, I stayed in Arizona. Kept working outside. I took a longer job doing maintenance in a canyon reserve. Same kind of work. Quiet. Lots of thinking time. I stopped feeling like I was waiting to run. Before, everything felt temporary. Now I just worked and didn't think so far ahead. One afternoon, an older woman stopped me on the trail. Said her husband had slipped on a loose rock. I followed her back to where he'd fallen. He was all right, just shaken, cut his knee. I helped him up, walked them back down. We talked. Nothing deep. Just life. At the bottom of the trail, the woman said, "Thank you. You seem like someone who's good at being still." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. After they left, I sat on a bench and thought about what she said. Good at being still. Gray had that. But I hadn't realized I picked it up too. I started keeping a small notebook. I wrote down what I saw, what people said, what I was learning just by showing up. Nothing big. Just little truths. A young guy joined our crew that spring. First week, he broke a tool and started apologizing like it was the end of the world. I told him, "You're not broken. Just learning where your edges are." He looked at me for a second and said, "Huh? I like that." Later, I wrote it down and realized it sounded like something Gray would have said. Maybe I just repeated him without meaning to. That's when I knew something had shifted. I wasn't just remembering Gray, I was carrying him. The way he slowed things down, the way he waited before speaking, the way he showed up without a show. It had started to become part of me. And I wasn't waiting anymore. I was doing. But still, part of me hoped I'd see him again. I kept an ear out. Asked around sometimes when new guys joined a crew. "You ever work with a guy named Gray?" Most said no. A couple said maybe. One said, "Yeah, I think so." Quiet guy. Walked with a limp. Said he'd been doing this forever. That was enough for me. A few months later, I took a seasonal job near Prescott. A trail crew was setting up for late summer work, erosion control, bridge maintenance, fixing up signage. It was decent pay and a steady 2-month stretch. I signed on, showed up the first day, and didn't recognize anyone. That didn't bother me. The crew was younger. I was probably the oldest by 10 years. They were good workers, but restless. Phones out during lunch. Always talking about where they were going next. I kept quiet and worked. One evening, a fire was going near the base camp. Someone brought out a guitar. I didn't play, just sat with my coffee and listened. One of the guys asked how long I'd been doing trail work. I said a while. He asked if I ever worked with anyone memorable. I said yeah. A guy named Gray. They asked what he was like. I said he lost his son. Never got over it. But didn't let it ruin him. Nobody said anything for a second. Then one kid said, how'd he handle that? He didn't try to. He just carried it. That seemed to hit them harder than anything else I could have said. Later that night, one of the younger workers, Josh, came and sat next to me. You think people really change? He asked. Depends. On what? Whether they stop running. He nodded. We sat in silence. Next morning, Josh came to me and asked how to clear a jammed post hole digger without snapping it. I showed him. After that, he started sticking near me. Asked a lot of questions. Not just about tools, but about how to handle things. When a hiker cursed at him for closing a trail, he came to me instead of the crew lead. I said, people don't always know how to handle their own stuff. Don't carry it for them. He looked at me like I'd handed him a new way of thinking. I didn't feel like I was giving advice. I was just saying what I'd learned, mostly from Gray. I realized that what he'd passed to me, I was passing along without trying. Toward the end of the job, the crew had a weekend off. Some left camp to go into town. I stayed. Josh stayed too. That night we made a small fire. He asked again about Gray. Do you think he found peace? I said, I think he found enough quiet to live with the noise. Josh said, you ever think about looking for him? I did for a while. Then I figured if I was meant to see him again, I would. He nodded, then asked something that caught me off guard. Do you think he knows he changed you? I don't know, I said. But I think that wasn't the point. I think he just lived the best he could. That's what stuck. Josh threw a stick into the fire and said, I hope I meet someone like that. You might, I said. Might already have. He didn't say anything after that. Next day, we went back to work. I watched him work differently. Slower, more thoughtful. He wasn't rushing anymore. When the job ended, he came up to me as we were packing. I was scattered when I got here, he said. I think I leave a little more clear. I just nodded. He shook my hand and said, thanks for showing up. I said, that's all we can do. He left. I stayed a few more days to help wrap up. I never said anything more about Gray out loud. But I kept writing. Every time I passed a spot that felt still, I wrote down what I remembered. Gray hadn't disappeared. He'd just become part of what I carried into every job, every crew, every long walk through heat and dust. A year went by. I worked up north in the pines during the summer, then went back south for a winter contract near Tucson. I stayed busy, kept my head down, saw some familiar faces here and there, but mostly moved with the work. One afternoon, I checked the mail at a drop box I used near a ranger station. There was a letter. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a small folded paper. It said, Montana A. If you ever make it out to Silver Creek, there's a bench with a view. You'll know it when you see it. Gee. I stared at it for a long time. Silver Creek was a couple hours east. I'd never been there, but I'd heard of it. Small place, quiet, mostly hikers and old locals. I didn't have any contracts lined up the next week, so I drove out. Took me half a day. The road in was bumpy, but the kind of place Gray would end up. I asked around. Nobody knew a man named Gray. But one ranger said there's a bench on the Overlook Trail some guy built years ago. Didn't give a name. Just showed up, worked for a few days, and left. That sounded like him. I hiked up. The trail wasn't long. At the top was a simple wooden bench facing a wide view of trees and rock. Nothing special if you were just passing by, but something about the spot made you stop. I sat there for a while. No plaque. No sign. Just the bench. I waited, but no one came. I figured he hadn't meant for me to meet him. He just wanted me to see the place. I left a note under the bench. Still walking. Still listening. Then I hiked back down. A month later, I took a new job near the New Mexico border. Same kind of work. New crew. Same rhythm. One of the new guys, a woman named Lex, worked quiet like Gray did. After a week, I asked where she learned to move like that. She said an old guy taught me. Said grief doesn't go away, it just stops trying to drown you after a while. I asked, did he limp? She smiled. Yeah. I asked, did he go by Gray? She nodded. Didn't talk much. Just enough. I said, yeah, that's him. She said he left without saying goodbye. One morning he was just gone. That fit? He never stayed long. Never made a big exit. I told her he built a bench in Silver Creek. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she understood what that meant. That crew lasted 2 months. By the end, I could see Lex was the quiet center for a few of the younger workers. She listened. She gave them space. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew she'd picked it up from him the same way I had. We passed it along without meaning to. One night by the fire, Lex said he never said much about his son. I said he told me. Once. She said, I think that's enough. He gave it to each of us in pieces. I nodded. We sat quiet after that. After the job ended, I went back to Silver Creek. The bench was still there. My note was gone. I left another one. I'm still learning. If you ever come back, I'll be around. A year passed. I kept working, moving from one part of Arizona to another. Trail crews, fire lines, park maintenance. Same cycle, different faces. I didn't hear from Gray again. No letters. No word. But people kept mentioning him in passing. One guy said there was this old worker, didn't say much, showed up when we were shorthanded near the Mogollon Rim. Built a tool rack in a day, then left. Another said, met a man who sat with me after my brother died. Didn't say anything, just sat. That helped more than anything else. I never said who I thought it was. Just listened. Back in Tucson, I met up with a guy I used to work with. He was heading out of state and wanted to give me something. Said he'd been holding on to it. He handed me a small box. Inside was a pocket knife. Worn handle. The initials AG etched into the base. I recognized it right away. Where'd you get this? I asked. Someone left it at a camp table at Saguaro. A ranger picked it up. I knew you'd want it. I nodded. It was Gray's. I kept it in my pack after that. Didn't use it. Just kept it. That fall, I took a job in southern Utah. Same work. Cooler air. A smaller crew, older folks. One night at dinner, a woman named Carla asked what kept me in the game so long. I said, I met someone who showed me what it meant to keep going. She asked who. Doesn't matter, I said. Just someone who kept showing up even after life cracked him open. She asked if I was still looking for him. No, I said. Not really. Truth was, I wasn't. Not anymore. I knew he was still out there in his way. Moving from place to place, saying just enough, leaving something behind without drawing attention to it. It wasn't about finding him again. It was about doing what he did, leaving good behind, quietly. One day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. It was Lex. She said, just wanted you to know, another crew in northern Arizona mentioned a guy who called himself Gray. Sounded like him. He'd helped fix a trail after a landslide. Said he didn't stick around. I texted back, sounds about right. I didn't ask where exactly. Didn't need to. Later that week, I wrote something in my notebook. He keeps going. So will I. That same night, a younger worker named Ben sat beside me at the campfire. He asked, what do you do when you can't figure something out? I said, I work. I wait. I try not to force answers. He nodded. You ever lose someone? Yes. He didn't ask who. I didn't say. After a minute, he said, thanks. I said, you're welcome. That was it. By then I understood what Gray passed to me wasn't about stories or advice. It was the presence. The steadiness. The ability to sit in silence without needing to fix everything. Every crew I joined, I tried to bring that. Show up. Listen. Stay steady. One day, someone on a trail crew asked me, you ever think about doing something else? I said I am doing something. They asked what? I said I'm carrying what someone gave me. That was enough. A few years passed. I kept working. Never stayed in one place too long, but I stopped thinking of it as drifting. It was just my path. New people came and went. I kept hearing about Gray secondhand stories, mentions of an older man who didn't say much but left an impact. Different crews, different regions, but the pattern was always the same. Someone was struggling, Gray showed up, didn't make it about himself, helped quietly, then moved on. I met a guy named Theo on a crew near Globe. We worked together for a few weeks. One morning, while we were waiting for a supply drop, he said, ever meet someone who made you stop feeling sorry for yourself without even saying you were being soft? I said, yeah. Once. He said, same. A guy named Gray. He helped me carry my gear when I couldn't take another step. I asked him why he did it. He said, you'll do it for someone else someday. I said he was right. Theo looked at me. You know him? Yeah, I said. He changed me. Theo didn't say anything after that. We just kept working. That winter, I didn't take a job. First time I'd stopped in a while. I stayed in a small town outside Flagstaff, helping a local crew part-time. I started writing again, not notes, but whole pages. Stories from the trail. Things Grace said. Things I'd learned. I didn't plan on showing anyone. It just helped to write it out. One of the pages just said, "You don't get to choose what breaks you. You only choose what you do after." Another one. "He never asked for anything." Maybe that's why I listened. That spring, I drove out to Silver Creek again. The bench was still there. A few scratches on the wood, some initials carved in that weren't mine. Still solid. I left another note. "You're still walking. So am I." Then I sat for a long time. When I stood up to leave, a couple hiking past asked if I was waiting for someone. I said no. Just remembering someone who helped me understand how to keep going. They nodded and walked on. Back on the trail, I realized something. I didn't need to see Gray again. I already did. In Theo. In Lex. In Josh. In all the people he reached and never followed up with. He wasn't gone. He was just living in pieces spread across 1,000 quiet places. One day, I met a new recruit named Caleb. First week on the job. Lost his brother to suicide a few months before. Didn't say it outright, but I could hear it in his voice. I didn't give advice. I didn't try to fix him. I just worked beside him and stayed near. At the end of his first full shift, he said, "I thought this job would be too quiet. But I think I needed the quiet." I nodded. He asked, "You ever lose someone?" I said yes. He didn't ask who. Later that week, I left him a note in his pack. "Keep going. You've got good bones for it." Same thing Gray once told me. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to.